I'm not just partial to the industry. I just think that, you know, America's got to have energy to run it, and you got to have fossil fuels. There's no way you can do without that. And I actually started off in your business. Back when, probably I've been before you were born, Mike. I was a tool director on a cable tool rig, and I always remember this because some of you may remember what cable tool rigs are. And out in the hot sun, when it's 100 degrees out, and you're pounding that bit into in front of the forge. I was on a second shift one day, and the son of the owner of all these rigs, the well blew up. I lived, he died, and they wanted to. I always wondered, Harold, where I'd be today if I had taken him up on that and stayed in the business. But you know, I think if I could get a message to you, you've got to understand that, because now and then I'll see advertisements go out. I saw one by ExxonMobil not too long ago, where they're kind of advertising to the people. The problems you have are not the people that are out there, certainly not in Houston and not in Oklahoma. They are the members of the United States Senate, and to a lesser degree the House, but I'm concentrating on the Senate. They dislike you in this administration, as I carry around selective quotes that I use to document what I'm saying about how bad you guys are. It was Secretary Chu, Secretary of Energy, who said that we're going to have to get the price of gasoline comparable to Central Europe, about $8 a gallon, before we're going to be able to direct people to green energy. The Treasury Department General Counsel said to the extent the lower tax rate encourages overproduction of oil and gas, it is detrimental to long-term energy security. This is a good one here. There's a Rebecca Water who has been nominated by the president to be the Fish and Wildlife top, and so I have a hold on her so she can't get there. This is what she said: unless we stop the threat of rampant shale fracking, the drinking water of 17 million people across the Northeast will be threatened by toxic pollution. We can't let natural gas companies fatten their profits by putting our precious clean water at risk. She went on to say that fracking has a nasty track record of creating toxic chemical soup that pollutes groundwater and streams, all this stuff. And I could go on and on, but I think you know this. Now, since I'm from Oklahoma, and most of you know that in 1948, in my state of Oklahoma, they did the first hydraulic fracturing. And there has not been a documented case of groundwater contamination since that time. They tried to use this case up in New York. That was somebody that was run off, and it was not the deep stuff. So when the president came out and was shocked that his study group said, well, they are right. There hasn't been a documented case. This was just last week. But they said we still need to regulate it from the federal level. And that's what they want to do. They want to regulate it. Now, my floor speech on that is I talk about the different depths that you have to go in the Anadarko or in Oklahoma and Kansas and different places, and that it should be regulated by the states. It is, and there's never been a problem with it. But that's one of the things that if there's one target, and I'm going to respond to any questions you have about senators who are for re-election, it should be Bob Casey in Pennsylvania. I like Bob Casey, lovable guy and all that, but he is the one with the bill to give the federal regulation of hydraulic fracturing, and he's from Pennsylvania. The Michelle, you know, all that stuff is in his area. So when you stop and think that we have, and this is kind of new stuff within the last year, United States of America has the largest producible reserves of oil, gas, and coal in the entire world. I mean, 83% of our onshore private lands, you can't go in after the oil and gas, and so there's the problem that we have. It's not, we're the only country in the world that doesn't exploit its own resources, and that's what this administration is all about. And I feel very optimistic that we're going to be able to the Republicans will take over the Senate. There's no question about that. Now I'll talk a little bit about in the Senate, the committee that I chaired when Republicans were a majority the last time was the Environment and Public Works Committee. That committee has more to do with everyone in this room than any other committee, including the Energy Committee in the United States Senate, because they do all of the regulation stuff. And it's the regulation. Everybody knows, in America knows, what Obama has done in terms of spending money. This $5 trillion over 3 budgets, $5 trillion a deficit. I remember going down to the Senate floor back when I was back in the 90s, I think it was 1995, when Bill Clinton came out with his budget, and it had is a $1.5 trillion budget. Now, and I was down on the floor yelling and screaming, that's not sustainable and all that. Now, the deficit alone in the president's budget was more than $1.5 trillion in just 1 year. And so, all these, and Republicans have not, for some reason, they won't say it as they should be saying it, that our problem is not really the Democrats or the Republicans or the House and the Senate in terms of the spending. It's one guy, and that's President Obama. Because he sends the budget down, and that's the budget that they use. And he has just under $5 trillion of deficit. So instead of appointing all these committees, all these 12 guys, these in the House and the Senate, and the Republicans and the Democrats, all you have to do is repeal his deficit spending. I mean, you can get $1.2 trillion just out of Obamacare. So if you go to the source where the problem is, and you can do it. So everybody knows that. What they don't know is just as difficult for people in this room, and not just you. You tend to have tunnel vision, and I don't blame you for it because you're in the business. But if you are a manufacturers group, you feel the same way. If you are defense contractors, you feel the same way. If you are in the ag community, you feel the same way, that you're being targeted. That it is the overregulation. If you take just what they're doing, you know, I was the one that was dumb enough 10 years ago to be the only one in the Senate to go after this whole global warming thing, and I won. And my opposition wasn't all Democrats. One of the toughest the opposition I had was none other than John McCain. The McCain-Lieberman bills, you remember that. And that would have put everybody out of business. Well, anyway, what they have been unable to do, and they're down now to less than 25 votes in the Senate out of 100 that would vote for cap and trade. So that's going. So now he's trying to do it through regulations. That's the environmental protection. And again, all you have to do in the thing that I've been using on TV is that if you'll take just the amount of money that would cost us in taxes, the range is between $300 and $400 billion a year, and you get nothing for it. And for those of you who have liberal friends who think that you'd get something for this, just remember what it was that the administrator of the EPA said in a public meeting live on TV in answering to my question. I said, if we were to pass the Markey bill or the McCain-Lieberman bill or these bills, would it reduce emissions worldwide? And she said, no, it wouldn't, because that only affects the United States. That's not where the problem is. And so even that tax, the $300 to $400 billion a year, would get nothing, and no one, even by their own admission. So that's the effort that we're going to be putting into it to try to show people that the regulations, the emission regulations, they call them MACT, M-A-C-T, maximum allowable, what is that?
Control technology. Control technology,
very good. In farm dust, in everything else, and they're trying to control it below points where there's just no technology. In fact, I had a news conference in Oklahoma. It's kind of fun. Those of you who have been to my dove hunt, how many people have been to my dove hunt? Yeah, there we go. You're coming again this year too, Cheryl. Bring your money and your wife, okay? And anyway, down southwest of Altus, Oklahoma, and it's kind of hard to get southwest of Altus, Oklahoma, when they came out with the dust regulation, I had a news conference. We had people there from Washington, journalists who had never been west of the Mississippi, and I said, it was a very short news conference. Were you there, Blue? I don't think you were. You might have been. Anyway, Jeff, maybe you were there at that time. Remember that I said, all right, you guys see this brown stuff down here? That's called dirt. Now that round circle that's green down there, that's cotton. And this up here, that's wind. Are there any questions? And that was the end of it. And they went back to that, because there's no technology that's out there that will do that. So,